Hi, welcome to my channel. I just want to start off by thanking all of my new subscribers as well as thanking everyone who has been with me so far. We have officially reached 1,000 subscribers. I literally cannot believe that I actually hit that milestone. That was my end of year 2025 milestone, but here it is early March and we hit it and I'm super excited. So thank you all for being here. I have 3 different types of videos I typically upload to this channel. I do a mostly weekly update where it's just a chatty video of me sharing with you my progress on my most recent cosplay build, and I do tutorials or walkthroughs of how I made something, such as most recently the series on making Ravenna, which is very timely given the conversation around Snow White this month. And third, I do occasionally some commentary videos about costuming in media, which I have a few. Those were relatively sporadic based on how my competition builds were, but given the increase in views and engagement that I've gotten lately, I see that there is an audience for some of that. So I will be expanding that portion of my channel. I'll be posting that monthly and then continuing with my weekly updates in between, and then my longer tutorial type walkthrough videos when they get done. It just takes me a long time to put those together. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up with that. So with that, I am still in the middle of hand beading panels for my upcoming competition piece, which this one is 90% done. I am currently beading the second one and stoning this one, but given that I don't have a lot to really share with this just yet, I decided to go ahead and post another commentary type video. And since last week we talked about Snow White, the new Disney live action that's coming out, and my opinion about the costuming, I thought we could spend this video talking about the costuming that I find to be one of the best Snow White costumings in my opinion. It is just beautifully, beautifully done, and that is, of course, Mirror Mirror. This movie popped into my head because of a comment on my last video about a high fantasy style Snow White, and that reminded me that this movie existed. It unfortunately was not a very popular movie. It did star Julia Roberts and Lily Collins and Nathan Lane and this one guy that I've seen before but can't remember his name, who's the prince. So it had an A-list cast, and I think it had a pretty good opening weekend, but it was released, people watched it, and it sort of faded into the background, never to be thought of again except by people like me who obsess over costuming. So that reminded me that this movie existed, and so I decided to go ahead and rewatch it earlier this week. And I was reminded why I don't particularly, like, it's a fun movie, but it's just not something that I remember, like Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings sticks with me, but Mirror Mirror just does not stick with me as much. It's somewhat forgettable, and Julia Roberts' English accent is interesting, but the costuming in this movie is phenomenal. The costuming throughout the entire movie is amazing, but I'm going to stick specifically with Snow White's costumes throughout the entire movie as a nice balance to the sort of negative review I gave in my last video, which if you want to see that, I'll put it up in the cards or down in the description below. So yeah, so that's my intro. If you want to see more content from me, make sure to hit the subscribe button. I will try to get these intros down, I promise. Some people made some comments on that. It's true, I have long intros, but at least I put timestamps in this time. So hopefully that helps, and I will try to bring these down a little bit in the future. But with that, let's hop on into it. So Mirror Mirror was a movie released in early 2012. It actually came out before Snow White and the Huntsman, which by the way is my favorite Snow White movie, mainly because I'm obsessed with Ravenna and Charlize Theron as the evil queen and the costuming in that, which I actually will probably make a video about after I see the live action Disney Snow White to compare the evil queen's costumes. There was this weird resurgence of live action Snow Whites all back to back to back, and I remember when they came out everyone was kind of confused because we thought Disney was releasing a live action Snow White, which was very early on in their live action releases. That predates Cinderella, which was 2015, but it would be after Alice in Wonderland. So there was rumor about a Disney live action Snow White coming out, and then we got Mirror Mirror, not Disney, Snow White and the Huntsman, not Disney, and then the live action Snow White from Disney sort of just fell by the wayside. I don't know, I kind of feel like this was sparked by the popularity of the TV show Once Upon a Time, which started with Snow White and kept that character throughout the entirety of the series. So we had this fun resurgence of these live action fantasy movies. Mirror Mirror is a little bit of a different tale, just like Snow White and the Huntsman is. It's kind of told from the perspective of the evil queen, but then it switches to Snow White's perspective. And then at the end, it kind of goes back to the evil queen's perspective. But the story itself is about Snow becoming a confident, strong woman who can take care of herself and eventually rule a kingdom. She's very timid and meek and is able to be bossed around in the beginning, and at the end of the movie she is wielding a dagger and giving the poison apple to the evil queen. It's a fun story. There's just some things I really don't like in it, like these weird pogo sticks that they put the dwarves on to fight. It's a strange design, but it's still a visually spectacular movie. It is a feast for your eyes, not just the costuming, but the contrasts against the background and the palace displays. It is a beautiful movie, and I do think that it's worth a watch. And it immediately starts on a strong note when we get through the introduction and the camera zooms in on Snow White looking out of the window in her tower, and she is stunning in this gorgeous, multicolored floral dress. This dress and all of the costumes were actually the creation of costume designer Aiko Ishioka. I may have mispronounced that. She was a Japanese costume designer, and she was actually going through cancer treatment during this film, and this was the last film she would work on. She unfortunately passed away before the film was finished and released. She, interestingly enough, actually did the costume designs for the 1990s Bram Stoker's Dracula. And if you've seen that movie and how beautiful those costumes are, it makes a lot of sense when you look at this movie and see how cohesive everything is across the board. She was very good at telling a story through costuming. So with that story, we start off with this very first design, which is this gown that has this pale pink fitted bodice with lavender puff sleeves and this yellow skirt, which I think was a nod to the original Disney classic, and it is completely covered in florals. From what I can tell in looking at some of the articles that came out at the time, she really wanted to connect Snow White to nature, since she has that affinity, you know, she can sing to the birds and whatnot. So we get a lot of florals in this, and we have the pale colors, which really are supposed to lean into her innocence, and the silhouette of this dress really shows that she is a princess. She is delicate, and it's very stiff fabric, which is not as easy to maneuver in, which is a great contrast to her costumes later down the road. But she's still treated like a princess in this movie. She's essentially locked in her tower or made to stay there. She's not treated as a servant girl, so it makes sense that she is still dressed well. She's still a reflection of the queen, and the queen knows that, so she's not kept in rags. I do love all of the florals and the embroidery around this design. I would have liked to see the applique on the bodice actually be embroidery, just to make it feel a little bit more luxe, but I get it. It's a design choice. It still works really well with the costume, and then you get all that floral on the skirt itself. The colors work really well in this movie. I think it's the subtle lavender and the pale pink. It's almost a neutral color, and then it allows the yellow of that skirt to really shine, but it is a very good palette for the actress. It fits her very well, and I do really enjoy the hairstyle in this, a longer style than the bob we get in the new movie, and I love actually the color of her lip. Later you will see that lip color matches the poison apple, which I thought was a really nice touch. And I like on the bodice that we have these little tabs, which is a nod to history. There's really I feel like there's no one particular historical reference in this, except a nod to the 1860s or so, maybe a little earlier than that, but we have that sort of silhouette with the bell skirt and the styling of the top. And we have those little tabs on the bodice, which is kind of a nod to 18th century stays. But this look is one of my favorites in the entire movie. I guess she really only has 4 looks, so it's probably my number 2 favorite look in this movie. And she actually does wear this dress for a little bit in the movie. She dons a bright yellow cloak, which really works with the rest. You think that adding more yellow wouldn't work so well with this costume, but they made the color a little darker, a little richer, and it hides the sleeves and the bodice quite well, so it actually fits the costume very, very well. And the shape of the cloak is very fantasy, campy. The entire movie is over the top, and the costumes match that vibe, and you can really tell when they add this cloak. It's just one more thing, but it somehow really works in this style. So she dons this yellow cloak and she goes out to the woods to go and find, or to go to the village on her birthday, and you get this nice contrast of the gold of the cloak and the dead winter background. It's very reminiscent of Red Riding Hood, and when she gets to the town, everything is dreary and run down, and she stands out like a golden ray of sunshine of hope to the townspeople. So it just makes a lot of sense that they would deck her out in this gold. The next time she gets a costume change is when she makes it back to the palace. She infiltrates a ball she's not supposed to go to that her stepmother is putting on, and she wears this white swan gown that it's meant to blend in with the rest of the masquerade so that her stepmother doesn't see her, because she's trying to get to the prince and get his help for her mission to help out the people of her kingdom. This dress, it should be ridiculous. It should be kind of dumb, but for some reason, this dress just works on Lily Collins. If you ignore the swan head and the swan leaves, we have this beautiful bodice with the elongated point, and in those skirts we have this lace that is cut in just a way that it mimics feathers without being feathers. It's just lace. And on the back of the bodice we have these little pearl buttons that match the pearls on her gloves, and then of course more of that lace applique on the front. In the very back we also have the bustle shaped in a way that gives a nod to the back of a swan, or their wings kind of folded. Now the top part is what we should find silly. It is completely over the top. She has these wings that are probably made out of foss shape, and the swan head on her head as her hat. I love it. So you've got the swan theme in the dress, and then you just over the top it with these swings and this hat, but it works. It works so well because the entire environment around her fits that style. There are plenty of other people in the background wearing extravagant costumes, and everyone is treating this costume as normal, and the prince even finds it extraordinarily beautiful.
I'm sorry, seeing you in this dress has caused me to lose my words.
It's just an interesting way of seeing how you can be super creative and a little silly, and it still works in the context of the movie you're trying to create. And on top of it, she's kind of the prettiest one there. Of course, she's the fairest of them all, and she can use the wings to like turn and hide her face from her stepmother that's like up near the throne. So there's a practical usage to the design of this dress. And then there's also the nod to her becoming a swan. She was never an ugly duckling, obviously, but she's starting to find her strength in this moment. She's defying her stepmother. She's becoming a different person. She is morphing into a swan, metaphorically speaking, and swans are often known to be beautiful and delicate as well, and it just adds to a nod into her character development. So this is one of my favorites, and I swear if someone who follows me makes this as a competition piece, please let me know, because it absolutely deserves an award. It is such a good piece for a competition build. There's another one that I think actually tops this as a competition build, but I'm just gonna throw it out there. Please let me know if you ever make this, because I would love to see it. So the third outfit we see her in actually is for most of the rest of the movie. At the very end is when we get another costume change. So she really only has about 4 costumes. I actually don't like this one so much. It's meant to be the polar opposite of everything before. So we have the big yellow skirt ball gown, then we have this beautiful swan gown. Now we have pants. We have flouncy pants and a waist cincher with very little structure to it. You can see later that you can see in the movie how easily it bends around her. So it has boning, but it doesn't have a lot of structure. And then this off the shoulder teal peasant top. Now I will say this looks gorgeous on her, and with the bangs and the red lip, that teal color was the perfect choice. And then the gold accent in embroidery in the waist cincher, beautiful, beautiful as well. It just feels very 2010s. Like, this is an outfit you could probably have found on a lot of girls, or at least where I grew up in the Midwest. Those sort of flouncy pants, which, I mean, to be fair, like the split pants from the early 1900s, you know, the ones that came out so that girls could ride bicycles or whatever it was. It's not my time period that I've researched, but there were split pants that look like a skirt and, you know, aren't. So there's a little nod to history there, but it feels very much like, does anybody remember gaucho pants? I mean, those didn't go to the ground, but they remind me of gaucho pants. They look like they're made out of that stretchy jersey material that gaucho pants were made out of. And then the peasant top looks very fantasy, and the waist stitcher, it just doesn't fit. It fits the narrative of the story. It fits the narrative of the story, as in, you know, she's now wearing something much more flowy. It's maneuverable because, like, her sleeves are flowy, her pants are flowy. It's the polar opposite of all the stiff costume she was wearing earlier, and she can maneuver herself, she can fight, she can roll around, she can do whatever she needs to. She is not weighed down by fabric. She can throw a cloak on and hide easily. It makes a lot of sense in the context of the story as to why she's wearing that, and also for her character development, because at this point she is a fighter. She will protect her friends and take her kingdom back. There's a beast that she in the woods that she is trying to defeat, and she will take that head on. So it fits her character. It's supposed to be a stronger look and a more practical look. I just wish we would have leaned a little more into leather, maybe, or I don't know, something a little different. But I do get why it's in there, and it's still beautifully done. It's just, it takes a little away from the fantasy, in my opinion. So then the last costume is my absolute favorite, and this one is the one that I think would be an excellent competition piece for anyone interested. It is her crowning glory, her victory dress. It's actually her wedding dress. This dress is spectacular. We're back to that sort of 1860s look with the off-the-shoulder gown and the poofed out sleeve. Absolutely a nod to the 1860s. So you have that double lace detail around the top. You have this smocking detail in the front that is creating a beautiful texture, but it's just an incredible detail that was probably completely hand done to get that look and to fit it on the bodice. The amount of handwork in that is incredible, which is one reason why it is a fabulous competition piece. The sleeves themselves with the double stacked pleating. I know I've said this a lot, but that is perfection. I can't get over that sleeve. It is so well done. It's absolutely perfect. You don't see a lot of costumes like this anymore, which is unfortunate, because everything when it comes to television shows or movies, there's a lot of pressure to finish things fast. And when you rush costume design, you wind up with mistakes, things that don't quite fit right. Like, for instance, in the newest Nosferatu movie, which was great, by the way, and the costuming was beautiful, you go and you see that movie, and there's places where you can tell that maybe they were a little rushed. Like, I remember one of the dresses, the stripes didn't match up at the seam, and back when they would make a dress like that, match up your stripes at the seam so that they're not, shifted. So you get a lot of stuff like that, which, even though it's, a gorgeous dress in Nosferatu, it has some flaws. Or like the new live action Snow White, I'm convinced the studio has a hand in why the costuming in that movie seems a little off. And it might be timeline that they're trying to push out this movie, and they're not giving the costume designers the time that they need or deserve to make something spectacular. So then you look at Mirror Mirror in 2012 and you see something like this dress that had to have taken an incredibly long time to make, because there's all of that handwork in it. We don't do this anymore, and it's so sad, because we could have had something like this in the live action Snow White, and we didn't get it. And as several commenters pointed out in my last video, the same designer that did the costumes for 2015 did the costumes for Snow White, Sandy Powell. She did Snow White, And it feels like two completely different designers. I'm convinced the studios are against designers in this day and age with having to move at lightning speed. But anyway, back to this dress. So this dress is another architectural wonder. Like I said, we had the double pleating of the sleeves, which probably has an enormous amount of fabric to get that look. And then we have the full bell skirt again. We have an overskirt, underskirt. We do see some of the pleating and ruching in the bottom, which brings some of that detail down. I will say I'm not as big of a fan as the overskirt, that lighter blue overskirt. I love the idea of the lighter blue. I just feel like the embroidery is not enough. It feels almost like it lessens the expensive look of the gown. The top looks expensive. The bottom underneath that overskirt looks expensive, and then that top lighter blue overskirt kind of looks like an apron. Maybe a little more ruching in there, but I do understand wanting to maybe simplify it and then add more of the pizzazz on the bottom. But the sort of crowning glory on this dress is this big yellow bow on her back. And it's not a standard bow, it's a bit more fantastical than that. It almost feels like the type of bow you would see on the back of a kimono, which makes a lot of sense given that the designer was Japanese, so maybe she brought in some of her heritage into this gown. But the shade of yellow really suits this dress well. Kind of gives an appearance of wings, like she has finally found herself and is able to take flight. It's just the back of this dress is just stunning. I will say I don't like that they gave her long sleeves. I don't understand the obsession with giving Snow White long sleeves. She didn't have very warm dress when she was fighting with the dwarves in the snow, but we get long sleeves for her wedding day. I think it was probably a choice to bring some of that yellow from the back into the front and balance out the color. I will say I think the color balance works, but I'm just not a fan. I would have maybe preferred that the sleeves were just short and stopped at the pleating, and maybe bring some of that yellow to the front in the embroidery, or maybe some of the ruching on the bottom of the skirt is yellow, or around the waist like a sash. I just am not, it's almost perfect. It's almost perfect. That's just my opinion. Essentially, the conclusion of this is that we use costuming to enhance the story that's being told, and it should reflect that. And this designer really, really did such a fantastic job of telling a story. You can look at this and see the narrative through her clothes. And even though I don't think that they're all winners, they're still so well done. And this was the kind of level I was expecting from Disney's live action version, and it's just unfortunate that it doesn't seem like we're going to get it. But I'm curious to your thoughts. Have you seen Mirror Mirror? If not, I highly recommend you go find it. I think it's on Hulu. I wound up just renting it from Amazon because I didn't want to try to hunt it down. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. It's a fun movie to watch. And if you have, let me know your thoughts on the costuming in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think. And if you have a different Snow White movie with amazing costuming, I would also love to hear that so that I can go and take a look. So if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe for more content from me. And I will see you in my next video, which will probably be an update on my cosplay build.